Why would kings and chroniclers erase entire villages from history books? Why do medieval maps show towns that archaeologists later discovered had been wiped out overnight? The truth is more terrifying than plague or famine. It's a secret history someone desperately wanted us to forget. For centuries, the Middle Ages have been wrapped in a strange kind of romance. We imagine castles glowing in the sunset, knights in shining armor defending honor, and kings and queens ruling with grandeur. But behind this polished picture lies a hidden archive of imagery so disturbing, so unfit for public eyes, that it was buried, censored, and in many cases deliberately destroyed. These forbidden medieval images tell a different story, one of cruelty, punishment, disease, and beliefs, so bizarre they seem almost unreal today. Why would authorities and chroniclers erase such things from history books? The answer is simple: power. To control the past, you must control what people see, and what these images revealed was far too damaging to the myth of noble medieval life. They showed the darkness that crept behind cathedral walls, the brutality disguised as justice, and the terrifying rituals ordinary people were forced to endure. In this video you will see what was never meant to be seen: paintings, carvings, and records so shocking that for centuries they were suppressed in silence. The question is, are you prepared to witness the medieval world as it truly was, not as fairy tales promised it to be? When people today see the image of a plague doctor, it almost feels cartoonish, like a strange birdman with a long beak mask, a wide-brimmed hat, and flowing robes. It has become a costume, a meme, even a curiosity in pop culture. But in reality, that mask was never a symbol of safety. It was a shield against a nightmare. The beak, stuffed with herbs, vinegar-soaked sponges, and even crushed flowers, was meant to filter out what they believed was poisoned air. Behind the eerie glass eyes of the mask, however, the doctor saw sights that no human should ever witness. Historical illustrations and preserved equipment reveal the bone-chilling truth. These doctors walked into homes where entire families lay rotting together, children still clutching the bodies of their dead mothers, husbands too weak to bury their wives. Their wax-coated robes stank of smoke and disease, and their sticks were not only for distance, they were used to prod corpses, drive away the desperate, or strike the infected who came too close. And then there are the journals. Within the cramped handwriting of plague doctors are records of horrors that sound almost inhuman: streets lined with carts of swollen corpses, neighbors setting fire to houses to contain the infection, and desperate parents abandoning their own children. What we uncovered in these journals doesn't just describe death, it describes the collapse of humanity itself. If these dark medieval secrets are shocking you as much as they shocked us, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started with history's most hidden horror. When we think of witches today, the image feels almost playful: pointed hats, bubbling cauldrons, and fairy tale magic. But in the records of medieval Europe, the word witch carried a death sentence. Behind closed doors, authorities documented horrors that make the fairy tale version vanish like smoke. Early drawings, trial sketches, and later photographs of preserved torture chambers reveal the brutal reality. Accusations could begin with nothing more than a neighbor's jealousy or a failed harvest. Yet once a woman, or sometimes an entire family, was accused, their fate was sealed. Iron collars, racks, and spiked chairs were used to force confession. One of the most infamous methods was the swimming test. The accused was bound and thrown into water. If they floated, they were guilty of witchcraft. If they sank, they were declared innocent, but drowned. What makes these documents even more haunting is the chroniclers recorded screams, broken bodies, and the tearing apart of communities. In some towns, half of the population was accused in waves of hysteria. Families were erased, children left orphaned, homes abandoned in fear. And among the most disturbing cases were those where entire lineages vanished overnight, all because of a whispered rumor branded as truth. Deep beneath castles and city halls, hidden from the light of day, were chambers designed not for justice, but for agony. Tourists today can walk through some of these dungeons, stone corridors still echoing with silence, but the drawings and preserved devices tell the true story. Iron maidens with inward-facing spikes, racks that stretched bodies until joints tore apart, and chairs studded with nails where victims were strapped for hours. These were not myths. They were everyday tools of justice. The emotional weight of these chambers is almost unbearable. Imagine a prisoner shackled in darkness, hearing the screams of the one before him, knowing he would soon suffer the same. Torture was not simply punishment, it was spectacle. Crowds sometimes gathered as broken men and women were paraded through town after their torment, forced to confess crimes they had never committed. But why have so many official records of these chambers been sealed away for centuries? The truth is chilling. Medieval authorities wanted to preserve the image of righteous justice, not barbarity. They hid the fact that torture was not reserved for hardened criminals, but used against ordinary townspeople, political rivals, and even children. To reveal the scale of cruelty would have shattered the very foundation of law and order. The contrast is striking. Today, human rights demand dignity, fairness, and protection against cruelty. In the Middle Ages, pain itself was considered proof of guilt, and the sealed records we uncovered show just how far rulers would go to keep the machinery of fear hidden from future generations. When people think of medieval disease, they think of the Black Death, but buried deep in archives are records of other epidemics, outbreaks so horrifying they were deliberately erased from memory. Leprosy was one of the most feared. Entire colonies of men, women, and even children were banished outside city walls, forced to wear bells around their necks, so others could hear them coming. Families abandoned loved ones not out of hatred, but because society demanded. In many cases, names were struck from parish records, as if these people had never existed. And then there were the mad houses. Medieval treatments for mental illness were anything but humane. Illustrations show iron cages, forced bleedings, and public humiliations where the sick were displayed as entertainment. Physicians describe drilling holes into skulls to release evil spirits, a practice that often killed the patient long before it cured anything. Beyond these were mysterious plagues, fevers that left victims bleeding from the skin, or waves of sudden death that swept through villages but were never given names. Chroniclers hinted at them, but details were carefully censored. Why? Because admitting such uncontrolled horrors would mean admitting the church and crown had no power over life and death. These medieval horrors keep getting worse. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what we uncover next, because the darkest secrets are still coming. We often imagine medieval royalty as figures of majesty, portraits of kings in golden crowns, queens draped in velvet, and heirs presented as symbols of divine right. But behind the glittering surface of these paintings lie scandals that were never meant to reach the public eye. Hidden in archives and private collections are records of murders, betrayals, and cover-ups that turned palaces into prisons of blood and silence. In one chilling case, a royal child vanished overnight. Official records claimed sickness, but secret notes from palace staff describe muffled screams, guards rushing through corridors, and the sudden appearance of a new heir in the portrait gallery. Another family portrait, once thought to be a celebration of unity, hides a carefully painted-over figure, an uncle accused of plotting treason, erased not only from the canvas, but from every surviving document. Forbidden love affairs were equally dangerous. Queens who strayed from their arranged marriages risked poison in their cups, while princes who fell for commoners often met hunting accidents that historians now recognize as political assassination. Each scandal was buried under the weight of royal power, but the evidence, hidden letters, altered portraits, sealed diaries, still whispers the truth. And then there is one private royal collection, guarded for centuries, where we uncovered artwork so explicit in its depiction of betrayal and murder, that it changes everything we thought we knew about nobility. What we found there reveals that the royal fairy tale was nothing more than a mask for blood-soaked ambition. When we think of childhood today, we picture innocence, play, learning, and protection. But in the Middle Ages, childhood was a luxury almost no one could afford. Historical artwork and records show that children were not sheltered, but thrust into survival from the moment they could walk. By the age of 7, many were already working in fields, carrying water or tending livestock. Others labored in filthy workshops, their small hands perfect for crawling into dangerous machinery. The cruelty went further. During wars, boys barely into their teens were handed weapons and sent to fight as expendable soldiers. Chronicles describe armies marching with child battalions, their deaths recorded in numbers, not names. And then there were the marriages, Girls promised as brides before their 12th birthdays, treated as tools for alliances rather than human beings. These disturbing realities were often omitted from official records, hidden because they clashed with the church's image of a moral society. Yet scattered illustrations and legal notes expose the truth. Medieval children were not cherished. They were consumed by the machinery of survival and power, and the rare surviving accounts from these children's voices reveal a pain too raw for history books to ever fully capture. Execution in the Middle Ages was never meant to be private. It was a spectacle, an event that drew entire towns into the square. Historical illustrations and preserved gallows, blocks and swords reveal just how deeply rooted this practice was in daily life. People didn't just hear of justice being served, they were expected to watch it unfold in blood. Beheadings were common for nobles, but for commoners, punishments were designed to be slow and unforgettable. Hanging, burning, breaking on the wheel, even being boiled alive, each method was not only a sentence but a warning. And yet the disturbing part is not only what was done to the condemned, it's who was watching. Children were often brought by their parents, taught that death was entertainment, and cruelty was justice. Chroniclers even note that vendors sold food in the crowd, turning executions into festivals of suffering. One recorded case tells of a young woman accused of theft, executed before thousands who jeered as her body burned. In another, a political prisoner's drawn-out death was described in shocking detail by those who cheered between his screams. These weren't criminals hidden away from society. They were put on stage, and the audience was complicit. The contrast is staggering. Today the thought of public torture is unimaginable. In the medieval mind it was part of life itself. And the execution records we uncovered don't just describe how people died, they expose the chilling truth of how entire communities fed on their suffering. If you're brave enough to keep learning these dark historical truths with us, subscribe now, because our research goes even deeper than what most history channels dare to show. Across Europe, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of medieval settlements that simply vanished, entire communities erased from maps, as if they had never existed. At first glance these ruins look ordinary, broken walls, collapsed roofs and forgotten wells. But the deeper the excavations go, the more disturbing the evidence becomes. In one village, homes were found with possessions still inside, pots left on hearths, tools scattered as if dropped in haste. Mass graves nearby suggest not just death, but sudden catastrophe. Was it plague? Was it famine? Or was something darker at work? In other sites, destruction is clear: charred timbers, shattered churches, and skeletons showing signs of violent struggle. Yet no official records mention these events. It's as if history itself tried to bury them. What makes these settlements haunting is the silence that followed. No survivors spoke. No chronicles recorded their fates. Entire lineages disappeared, leaving behind only the whispers of archaeology. And the mystery of why so many medieval towns were wiped from existence still casts a shadow that historians cannot fully explain. From plague doctors to torture chambers, from royal scandals to lost settlements, we've uncovered images and records that were never meant to serve. But the greatest revelation is not just the cruelty itself, it's the silence that followed. Medieval people documented everything: the faces of the dying, the instruments of pain, the confessions carved under. Yet when it came to the darkest truths, they sealed them away, rewriting history to preserve illusions of order, power, and faith. And it makes us ask, if they hid so much from us, what might we be hiding from the generations to come? Perhaps centuries from now, our own records will be uncovered, and people will see a reality we never wanted revealed. These medieval secrets were hidden for centuries, but we're committed to uncovering more dark historical truths that others won't show you. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our investigations into history's most forbidden secrets. What other dark truths do you think are still hidden? Let us know in the comments below.